So I was scrolling Letterboxd earlier today, and I was looking for movies to watch. I like to find the movies I want to watch on there and, add them to the list. And I like to look at the reviews on Letterboxd because, I like to see generally, did people like this movie? What they have to say about it? And I had Letterboxd a couple years ago, deleted it for whatever reason, recently got it back, and I've noticed something very interesting about the review feature is that, everyone is trying to just make jokes on it now. It's weird. And I mean, if you do this, no hate, of course. That's your prerogative. But I feel like almost everyone, not once have I seen under a movie so far that I've been looking to watch, people genuinely give their thoughts on the movie. And it's strange because it's almost like it looks like, and this is kind of a stretch, but everyone's just writing a review in hopes it gets screenshotted and becomes a meme, because lots of reviews have, and it really got me thinking about this whole irony thing. And when I say irony here, I'm using it as kind of a blanket term for any lack of sincerity, Of course, irony in its actual definition would be a little bit different, but irony, sarcasm, this kind of whole vibe is almost, I feel like it's in a unique spot, and a genuinely unique spot, you know what I mean? Because a lot of things, when you say they're in a unique spot, you could really be like, oh, but this happened in, the 1930s, this happened over in Germany, something along those lines. But this is something I feel is genuinely a unique spot, because we are so in this strange place of everyone trying to hide the way they feel. And it's really bizarre to me, because I feel like, and this is kind of a big feeling I've been having, I'd love to make something to really display this. I don't know whether it be a video or a piece of maybe something I'd write, but I feel like we're in this weird spot right now where we've all been handed the tools to do anything, and we're going in a really strange direction with them, where I feel like I'm interacting on a day-to-day basis, and this could be wrong, but it's definitely what I feel on my, in my personal experience, that I feel like I'm interacting with more of the negative parts of what we've been handed in this technology and this insane stuff than the positive parts. And what I mean by this when it comes to irony is we're so hyper aware now. For a lot of your day, you're scrolling and you're seeing not only other people and judging them, whether it's judging in a good or a bad way. Maybe let's take this video as an example. You're judging me of oh, is he talking? Is this boring? Should I click off? Should I keep watching? There is subconsciously or consciously a level of judgment going on whenever you watch anything, right? Not only are you seeing a ton of other people and judging them, but then you're scrolling to a section where you're watching everyone else's judgments of them. And I feel like it's made us all so hyper aware of how much we're judged, just in general. We are too aware of others' opinions on each other. It's almost I don't know if you guys have ever been in a friend group where it really just revolves around speaking badly about others, right? I'm sure we all have, whether it's in high school or maybe later or earlier in life. You get into that friend group and it's all you do when you're with that group is just speak poorly of others. You just shit talk the whole time. And eventually, one day, maybe you don't, but I definitely did, when I was in a situation like this, I was wait, if all they're doing when they're with me is talking badly about the other guy they go hang out with, what are they talking about when they're with him? And it makes you realize that oh, I'm not exempt from this. I'm probably getting it just as much as the other guy. This is just a negative space. And now we're seeing that across everything all the time, where you can't just, it's oh, if this is what the reaction is to this guy who's trying to be himself on the internet, what's going to be the reaction when I try and be myself in person? And you're hyper aware of all your actions where you wouldn't be before. And I think it's created this state where we use irony to deflect. And I'm using irony as a blanket term. I don't know exactly. I know there's an actual term for this in communication. I took a communication class once, and we went over this term. As you can tell, I did not excel in said class because I don't remember this term at all. But the term for when you say something before anyone else can point it out in order to deflect from any criticism, right? So yesterday in Paint&Talk, I was painting and I stopped what I was doing in the middle and went, oh, my hair is wet. That's why it looks like that. And that is in an effort, and it wasn't like a conscious effort, but watching it back as I was editing, I realized what I was doing. It's in an effort so that anyone who was about to comment, this guy's hair looks really weird today, would be like, oh, he explained it already, I don't have to. I'm, again, not consciously, but subconsciously trying to deflect from criticism by being less sincere. There is so much more to lose in just owning the wet hair and fully being like, my hair is, what it is, and not even commenting on it. There's more to lose there than if I were to stop as I did in the middle of the episode and go, my hair's wet. Yeah, don't say anything about it. Like, that's very different, I forget the term. I really wish I remembered it. It'd be very useful right now. But that's another form of how people are doing this. Is they're like, it's almost a way of going, and this is on a broader scale, not just about my hair. It's a way of going like, oh, I know I'm cringy. Don't comment about how cringy I am. I know I'm being cringy. And it's like, nobody's being cringy. They're just being themselves. And strangely, that's another paradox I feel like we're in so much right now, right? Is like, you can be yourself more than ever, right? When you were, and it doesn't feel like it, I know, but like hearing things from older people, I do believe this to be true. If you were someone who was like dressed punkish in the early 2000s, I've been using punk as an example a lot lately, huh? But if you were someone that dressed in that subculture, you would have to go like in person and seek out this venue and be living that way all the time. Now, like, people don't judge as much because they're seeing it on the internet. Like, everyone is kind of in the same room. So I think people are more open to be themselves, which is an awesome thing. But I also feel like, because of the way the internet functions, everyone's hyper aware of their own flaws where they weren't before. And they're not open to being themselves. And it's led to everyone using this sense of irony to deflect. Another place where I saw this happen, that really got me thinking about this. I started thinking about this, I want to say, I actually know the exact date, June 29th of last year. I came back from London, and someone in London was talking to me about this podcast, the Red Scare podcast, right? And they were saying, basically, Red Scare podcast is a super political podcast where they were socialists, and now they're kind of doing like a conservative thing, and there's this whole like fake thing in New York City here where it's like Dime Square, which isn't really a thing anymore. From what I understand, at least, I've never really been hanging out there, but like it's this whole thing, right? And this podcast is the main point, though. They started out as socialists and they went to conservatives, and it is like this really confusing thing because when they were socialists, they always spoke with an ironic tone about everything, right? They if you listen to them, and this is another point about how they speak actually, or at least the one girl speaks, I forget her name at the moment. They speak with a lot of like vocal fry and like this, like, yeah, kind of tone, like as if it makes it seem like everything they're saying comes off as a joke. And now the big joke is like nobody really knows where they lie. And this guy I was talking to was like, oh yeah, I've been listening to them for 5 years, since 2018. And that's 6 years, I guess, right? But either way, they were like, I've been listening to them for 5 years. I don't really know what they are. I don't know what's going on. I just think they're funny. And like, that's really interesting because it's almost as if they were ironic about something to the point where they looped back around and became serious about it, which is this thing called post-irony that I got like really into for a while. It almost became a video, and I wrote the whole thing and I had it scripted from my other channel, but I realized kind of like midway through, I was like, this doesn't really have legs, like nobody would really be that interested in this, so I gave up on the video. But it was really close to being one because I thought it was so interesting how in all of our lives, at one point or another, you have done something ironically to the point where it becomes serious. I noticed this a ton in how me and my friends joke, right? So especially this one friend I got, me and him we do these jokes that we know aren't funny, and then for an example, we'll use a really old term, right? Like we'll be talking and one of us on a call will go derp in the middle of it, because derp was a thing in like 2011, and then be like just trying to keep up with the times, like something like that, you know, where the joke is how unfunny it is. And eventually the first time you do it, you have to, you know, say, oh, it's funny, you know, you have the recognition of this is funny because it's not funny. And like it's ironic that you're saying something that's not funny as if you think it's funny. Like that's the joke there, right? But eventually what I've noticed is when we do these jokes, we hit a point where we go all the way back around, and the stuff that's like not funny and we know isn't funny becomes absolutely hilarious to us. And that's post-irony. When you do something so ironically, you come all the way back around and it's serious. And that's what happened with this podcast. And another thing that sparked this conversation the other day is this guy has a podcast, I forget the name of it, terrible on the naming front today, God. See, I just did it again where I disclose something so you guys wouldn't critique it. Now I'm gonna notice when I do it every time in this episode, and that's really bad because I shouldn't point it out. Wait, that's crazy because I did something and then I disclosed so you guys wouldn't critique it, and then I disclosed about the disclosure so you wouldn't mention that. That's crazy. And now I'm doing it again so you wouldn't mention the irony there. Like there's layers here, aren't there? Anyways, I need to stop thinking about that because that'll break my brain. And I won't be able to speak for the rest of this episode. But there's this podcast, don't remember the name of it, and one of the Red Scare Girls went on, right? I don't watch their podcast. I haven't in a long time, at least. I've checked out a little bit of it just to be like, oh, what's this? But haven't really watched in a long time. And I looked at the comments, and all of them were like basically going like hating, because they were like, this person bakes everything they do in 8 layers of irony, right? And I was like, that's so interesting, because people, when they're too unabashedly themselves, face criticism for it on the internet. I think I can say that with like a degree of certainty of like, we've all seen that, you know? Whether it's small scale or really large scale. But if you are too unabashedly not yourself, you will also face a degree of certainty. And I'm using her as an example because she speaks with like a lot of irony. It's really obvious. It's almost a joke. Like I think it's kind of, listen, I don't know enough about the podcast to really say if I think that's funny, but like it's a little funny, right? That like they've done something to this extent where it's like their thing is being so ironic that it's absurd, right? I can respect that, right? But it's happening, I feel like, in so many more subtle ways too. We all have seen the type of content where someone's obviously not being themselves and trying to act cool or trying to copy another content format because it'll get them clicks, it'll get them views. And those people usually get hated on like a ton. Like they get hated on so much, and everyone's like, oh, you're not, you know, be yourself. You need to be more authentic. And it's like, it's so strange, right? Because you need just the right amount of self-awareness to not face any criticism. But if you have too much self-awareness and you are way overcorrecting, you'll face a ton of criticism. So it's almost like there's a sweet spot of irony that people want to see right now in their content to reflect how aware everyone is of just how much judgment there's going on around them. Or at least that's how I feel it is. Obviously, I have no genuine idea what's going on in like society, you know what I mean? But just analyzing the way people speak on like my algorithms, that's what I feel is going on right now. Is like people need to hit this weird sweet spot. And like, it's like, why? Like I do believe, and this is something I came up with, by the way. I realize I kind of stated this earlier as fact, but it's something I came up with. Like, I think the reason we're so ironic right now is because we're so aware of like how much judgment's going on. Like, I think that makes sense, to me at least. But I don't know why we have this weird amount of irony to the point that, why do we have this like almost social code of irony? Of like, there needs to be an exact certain amount of irony. For an example, there's this Instagram creator, or maybe TikToker, I don't know what he is really, Dax Flame. He's been on YouTube for like ever. He made that one meme, or it was videos, but it became a meme, where it was like wearing my Superman outfit to school today, and then it was like, it's like day 30, wearing my Superman outfit to school, day 31, disappointment, or like revenge, or something like that, right? So he's like kind of a very long-standing internet guy, and he does these they're hilarious. They're the funniest thing on earth. They're these Instagram reels where he like does these jokes to people in public that are so unfunny that you laugh at the joke, right? It's a sense of irony. And my question about this is, what separates that from when you scroll and you see a comedian online doing stand-up and they bomb so hard with a bad joke and nobody laughs? It's the exact same thing. A guy goes up to a crowd with a bad joke and no one laughs. The same thing happens in both videos. What is it that makes us understand, no, Dax Flame is a funny guy who is making bad jokes because it's funny to make bad jokes, versus like this guy's just making bad jokes? Because, you know, and normally I feel like this would be an easy answer. We understand that Dax Flame is not serious, but we all understand that, right? And we can see that because of his internet history and like the fact that he's a stand-up, like can do good jokes, you know? Like, we understand all that, but he's never actually said it. Like, there's still, even though we all see it, we all understand it, there's that 1% chance that, you know, this guy lost his mind last year and he's not making good jokes anymore. Something crazy like that happened. So what is it that makes us have signaled to us that, like, no, Dax Flame is doing this ironically. That guy bombing at the stand-up venue in your local city who posts it is not doing it ironically, and he deserves a level of, like, he does not deserve that level of charitability you give to Dax Flame's jokes that make you laugh at it. How does that work? How does that get signaled? I don't know, and that's something that boggles my mind, because, like, we're in these layers of irony, and I feel like we're almost in a weird unspoken code right now. Like, the whole internet is. Where, and this is in real life too, that's why this is something, because sometimes when it comes to a topic like this, I don't like talking about it because I feel that it's too online. Like, it's like I talk about it so much where I'm like, oh my God, I just need to go out into the real world. This is in the real world though. I noticed this first in the real world. Before I was even on the internet, I noticed, like, in school, if I try too hard or act like I'm trying too hard, or if I talk a certain way where I'm like really excited about something, people will put that down as cringy. Like, I don't even think this is an independent thing. I think we all have noticed something like that, right? And obviously there's always been, maybe actually I've kind of debunked myself then. Maybe irony is not something that is unique right now, because I feel like it was always like that. Like, I know my parents went through the same thing, and I have cousins that are, you know, generation or two above me, and they went through the same thing. So maybe it's not quite as unique as I'm trying to make it out here. But like, as far as the online aspect of it boiling into the main one, because I think at first, maybe it's the same as it's always been. The online stuff is just sort of making it like times 10, right? Which it has online stuff has the tendency to do that, I guess. Where, like, it was always kind of that way in person. Now, though, I feel like it is times 10, where, like, since everyone is seeing how much judgment's going on, like, I still stand by that, right? That it's times 10 because of that. It's almost like we're all in this strange, like, unspoken code of, like, there is a degree of irony that you have to have when you do this, and we're all gonna understand that, or else it's too, or, you know, not even a degree of irony. I feel like that's the wrong word to use at this point. You need a degree of insincerity, right? You need a degree of not trying, of you're too cool to be doing this in what you do to make this socially acceptable right now. And that's why people are so, okay, wait, I think maybe the reason people are like, want that sweet spot of irony is so they can have just enough irony to not face themselves, right? Because, and I've went through this before too, right? Has anyone ever done something so harshly that you reflect back on yourself a little bit and are like, wait, I do that a little bit though? Like, an example, right? One time, my friend was telling me about how his friend has a really, like, musty room, and he was like, I hate going in that room, it's musty, you know, XYZ, whatever. And my first thought was like, you know, I could open my window a little bit more, because I realized, like, you know, I should get some fresh air in here right now. Not that I had a musty room or have a musty room, Just like, you know, I realized, oh, it's a little stuffy in here right now because of that. So like, I think maybe the same thing happens when we see someone being like wholly, like fully putting on a persona on the internet, right? That's why those people get shamed, because it causes everyone watching to go like, you know, I use that word too when I'm around my friends and I don't want them to judge me. You know, like something as small and minute as that, I think, could really mean a lot in terms of like, oh man, like I put on a mask too, and I don't wanna face the fact that like I do that too, so I'm gonna make fun of them for doing it hard, you know? And it's strange because it's like everyone has the desire to fit in, right? Like I don't, but you can tell me you don't all day. I fully believe that everyone has a desire to fit in one way or another. You know, I want to fit in with, in a way, all of you watching this right now. If I were to come here in, you know, a Nike tech using the same slang that Drake uses in his songs, it would be a very strange, it would signal the wrong thing. It'd be like, this guy's not going to paint and talk to me. No, that, you know, I dress a certain way in these, I act a certain way. And in a sense, I'm trying to fit in with the crowd of these videos. And everyone does that, right? I certainly do this. There are certain friends where when I'll go out with them, like I'm gonna throw on a different outfit than if I go out with the other friend group. I would like to think both outfits are me, but the point still remains that I am still trying to fit in one way or another, whether it's me presenting different versions of me or the more extreme version of a person directly putting on a character when they're with other people. And I feel like, you know, whether you can say you don't do this, but like everyone does, right? I don't believe anyone that says like, no, I'm wholly myself. I don't put any effort ever into fitting in. I don't buy that, right? So let's go with this premise that everyone does it a little bit. You don't really want to have called out when you're doing it. I mean, imagine you're hanging out with your friends and one of them goes, you're trying way too hard to fit in right now. That would be crushing. You'd be like, you know, oh my God, you're being a huge asshole right now, because everyone's putting a little bit of effort to fit in. Or let's say you wear, you know, this is a super extreme example. You have like one friend group that you'll throw on your cool trendy sneakers when you go out with, and then the other friend group you dress up a little bit and you put on like your dress shoes, like something like that, right? And then there's one guy that's in both groups, and when you're with the group where they're all wearing the cool sneakers, he points to them and he's like, you were just wearing dress shoes yesterday, why are you changing to fit in with this group? That would be so crushing. That would be so insanely like, oh my God, he just called out how I'm trying to fit in. He just called out my small degree of insincerity I put on to be in this group, right? So maybe, like, no one wants that called out. So how do you do it to a point where you have to reflect on yourself? Maybe it's a friend giving a whole different name to the other friend group because they want to fit in. Something, you know, there's a million ways this can happen that make you go, oh, that's really gross. And I think maybe the reason why we think it's gross is because it makes us look back at ourselves and go like, oh, like I'm, you know, maybe not in the same way, but I'm also putting on a little bit of a mask right now to fit in. We're all putting on a mask, right? And we don't want that mask called out, because then it wouldn't be a mask, you know? It wouldn't be quite as, the disguise wouldn't work anymore if everyone knows you're wearing it. So I think we're all like a little bit scared of facing the fact that we're wearing it. And maybe that's why we want to have this sweet spot of like, okay, they're using enough irony and a little bit of masking to fit in this, like in this context that I'm in, whether it's, you know, a Instagram reel or somebody is wearing something cooler, or a context like this where, you know, I'm doing something to signal something to the audience, right? You want to be able to go like, okay, they're doing a small amount of work to fit in. They're doing something, right? So they have the same recognition as me that they are not 100% free in this social circumstance. Like they're a little bit, they have to have that degree of self-awareness that they don't fit in, right? I think we want that. And that's why we don't like people being themselves too much, because it's like, no, you should be trying to fit in like I am. But I think we also don't want people to mask too much, because then it's like you're trying too hard to fit in. And I don't like that either, because it's pointing out the fact that I'm also putting in a degree of effort right now to fit in, which is why we want the sweet spot where we can go, okay, they understand they got to fit in right now, but they're not being weird about it. They're being normal. They're fitting in their fitting in a way, right? Like if you try and fit in too hard, you look like an undercover cop. But if you don't try and fit in hard enough, you look weird because you're not fitting in. Why aren't you trying to fit in? Like, what's wrong with you? And I think maybe that's why we want that sweet spot. I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I'm just throwing that out there now because that's really the only thing I can come up with. But it's interesting because maybe the irony is just, at the beginning of this, I said something that I believe in still, that like we are putting on this ironic face because we are so hyper aware of how much judgment's going on, of how people are being judged, what that judgment looks like, what's acceptable. Like this is another example of how social media sped up social interaction, right? Social interaction's been sped up and put like times 10 to the point where we are so aware of said social interaction, which is, in my opinion, a bad thing, but that's a whole different topic. And maybe what's happening because of that is not so much that there's a new form of irony going on, but that seeing so much sped up social interaction has made us self-aware in just how much we do to put on a mask, how much we do to fit in. And maybe that's why all this has come about. Maybe that's why I feel that we're in a unique spot with irony, when the reality is we're just in a more intense location with irony. Because let's think of like a classic 1950s bully scenario by the same rules, right? In this random scenario, you're like trying to fit in just enough that you're not going to get bullied, but you don't want to fit in too much to the point where you seem like a suck up to the cool jock, right? I think that's a relatable experience right there for the average 1950s kid. Shout out 1950s kids watching this. I know I just really brought you all back, so you're welcome. But, that is something that, to me at least, saying it out loud makes a degree of sense. And in a way, we're doing the exact same thing. We're just seeing so much more that we understand what we're doing better, and it's causing us to have a weird attitude about it. Like, no, don't point out that all of us are doing this thing, because then we all seem weird. Like, you're dragging us down by pointing that out. And you can point it out by being too loud about it. Like, almost when I keep using examples now because I'm trying to stall. See, I just did it again, where I didn't want you to come at the fact that I'm stalling at the end here. But now I'm pointing it out, so it's way worse, right? Because maybe you wouldn't have noticed that before. And that's actually the weird thing about this, too. Not stalling now, going to a real point. That's the weird thing about it, too, is that sometimes you do it in a way where people they wouldn't be aware of it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe when I pointed out that my hair was wet yesterday, this small little way that I tried to mask right there and deflect any sort of people coming at the hair, right? Maybe no one would have noticed. No one commented about it. No one said anything. How do I know that anyone even noticed that my hair was different? Who cares about my hair that much anyways? You know what I mean? I don't think anyone's paying quite as much attention to me as I am. I notice it because I edit it. I have to look at myself for an hour while I edit. So I notice it 10 times more than anyone else. If they're just watching this semi-passively, they're not noticing. So now it's in this interesting place where it's like, do you feel, you put on this slight mask and you prompt, or I'm so mad I can't remember the word. Not prompt, but you pre-disclose, like, I know I have this flaw right now, don't come at it. And if they didn't notice you had the flaw, did you just make it worse? Did you just seem insecure? Like, are we all, and then when it's like, when they're like, oh, I didn't notice that, they're like, should I be noticing more? Should I be noticing that I have these flaws too? Like, it puts everyone in a weirder spot where it's almost like, maybe it's turned into sort of like a self-fulfilling loop, right? Of like, nobody wants to point out that they notice, because then everyone else has to look at themselves and they'll notice harder, and they have to point out that they notice harder things about themselves. and then it just keeps going and going and going. Kind of like the cycle I got caught in earlier, where it was like, you know, I don't want to think about that anymore because it'll stop me from talking the whole episode if I just kept being like, no, I disclosed on purpose, and then I disclosed that to make sure you guys know I disclosed and realize I disclosed. Maybe that's what the whole world is in right now, and that's why this has been sped up. I just said fucking nothing. I don't even know what that ramble was. I think I had something in there maybe about irony, but who knows? I hope you got something out of it. I finished the painting, and in the spirit of what this conversation was, I want to go into a painting. I think this is either the first or second time of all Paint&Talk that I've done this, without a plan, and just paint something, whatever came out, and own it 100% in the sake of sincerity, almost like, you know, I'm not being ironic in painting this piece of shit in front of me. That's what this episode was. So I hope you enjoy it. You guys know the drill. Check out this over on the Instagram. And until tomorrow, guys, wait, I didn't even wrap that up. Like, I feel like that was too fast. Do you? Was that not kind of an abrupt ending? Guys, gals, and pals, this has been Paint and Talk episode 34. I'm here painting and talking every single day with you.